Warning: World Weary Podcast occasionally discusses mature themes and uses colorful language. Camping in the woods, you watch the sunset by a small fire you lovingly tend. Suddenly, a small creature can be seen perched on a tree branch nearby. His shoe buckles twinkle in the twilight. He looks at you, reflecting your own curiosity in his shiny, beady little eyes. He then holds up a pouch gleaming with gold, waving it toward you as if in offering. He says to you,
"Do you want me gold? Well then, you'll have to rate, review, and subscribe to World Weary Podcast."
Welcome to World Weary Podcast, a strange, otherworldly podcast hosted by two fairies drunk on storytelling. I'm the American one, Cassiopeia Walker.
And I'm the British one, Violet Star.
So, as far as world weariness goes, this week's been all right, considering I turned 31. No massive disappointments. We had a good time. But I know you've had a rough week, so do you want to get into it?
I don't think we can... I don't want to depress people any more than I did probably in the last episode. But it's okay. I found a place to move. Home. So that should all go ahead, hopefully, fingers crossed, quite smoothly. But it's one of those weeks where for every good, really good thing, you get a whole lot of bad shit happen, which kind of overshadowed the good a bit this week. And there's nothing more gutting than when your holiday or party gets cancelled. That's pretty crushing. A lot of just chaos and stress. But yeah, I'm coping, keeping my head above the water and just trucking on to where I need to be.
Yeah. We've made the best out of the holiday being cancelled. We're going to do a different mini holiday.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of a silver lining to that shit cloud.
It's just the awful gutting feeling when like a festival that you've been looking forward to is like cancelled at the last minute. You know, your whole fantasy is gone.
Yeah, my fantasy of seeing the pirate stuff and like seeing the semi-tropic waters and going in weird places was destroyed. But it's okay. We're going to make the best of it and do a different beach trip.
And we're going to repeat our fantasy beach trip next year.
Yes. I mean, personally, yeah, it's been a mild week. I'm trying not to let the little things get to me, so I feel like I've been pretty positive considering the world is a crisis nightmare.
We ate a lot of pizza on your birthday.
That was really good.
I had pizza regret after that, though.
I had pizza regret
I had pizza regret for like a few days after that. No more chicken kickers for me.
Yeah.
A lot of cake though, really nice cake. We put a picture of Cassiopeia's magical berry cake made by her husband very kindly.
Completely vegan, gluten-free, made with
absolutely
the
delicious.
Raspberries from our garden and honeysuckle from our garden.
When he gets down to it, he's an excellent baker.
He really is.
Should be on British Bake Off, Morgan.
He's really great. Like, he's so amateur, but like he doesn't stress in the kitchen. He's quiet as ever. You'll hear things being rustled about. I was not allowed in the kitchen, which was really nice. I did nothing on my birthday. I didn't have to do anything. Waited on hand and toe. Everyone was really nice.
5-star customer service.
Yes. He was really good. It was really nice. But yeah, that cake was boss.
Yeah, we put a picture of it on the Instagram.
Yeah.
So have a look.
Check it out.
And get jealous.
It's my birthday, not yours. Alright, so in case you didn't guess by the intro, today we are talking about leprechauns, or as British would say,
leprechaun. Is there a difference?
I say leprechaun. Like, we tend to have the whole con, leprechaun. And you guys say leprechaun.
Leprechaun.
I'm going to be cool and be like, leprechaun.
A leprechaun.
A leprechaun. I can't do it. So, we're going to...
Okay, I'll just say as well, I'm glad we're doing a leprechauns episode for the 20th.
Oh episode. Yeah, it's the 20th episode.
How crazy is that? We've done 20 episodes already.
Oh my gosh, that's insane. How did we get here?
I don't know.
there's a magic crystal ball next to me and a gin and tonic, and I don't know how I got here.
This
on the
episode's
20th
definitely-
episode of podcast.
And it's powered by gin and tonic
Yes,
as well.
we are celebrating our 20th episode with a lovely gin and tonic. It's a Greenall's gin, nothing too fancy, but with a fresh slice of
We've got
wine.
the red salt crystal lamp
Yep.
from Lidl. How
Yep.
much was that?
It was, I think it was only like 15 quid.
Yeah, that's like the sun kind of lamp in the room at the moment. Kind of warm,
Yeah.
powerful light. And then we've got the $5.99 B&M magical enchanted ball with glittery sequin stuff all over the outside. Maybe powered by fairies. Probably it's LED lights representing the moon on our little recording desk here.
Yep.
You can do it on a budget, witchcraft, okay?
It can be on a budget. Anything can be turned into a symbol or...
Turn that housing benefit into magical points. Yes, it's a good thing it's our 20th episode, but it's Leprechauns, because the past couple of episodes, in fact, a lot of our episodes recently
It's been very dark.
How the
Very
heck? And like
dark.
each episode was just like, we couldn't help ourselves but follow down a rabbit hole to another more
Dark
fucked
level.
up dark stuff. So it was like, we had the episode 15, the urban legends kind of episode.
See, Uncontacted Peoples was the last ray of hope for a chill out
Something.
story.
Yeah, and even that was like
Even
a
that
bit
was dark,
heart-wrenching and like
really
deep,
upsetting.
very deep and serious. So that urban legends one just got a bit of, that was fun. It was fun, but
It's silly, but it's like we opened the door.
we opened the door to something in that episode. And then we went into some very, very serious territory with Uncontacted Peoples.
Yep.
And then we went into freaking demonology, and that
was an intense episode of research as well.
Intensely dark. And then we went to vampires, which kind of spun off because we had a bit of a vampire connection in the demonology one with the beginnings of like what inspired Dracula. And then
it's like we went in a weird, we were accidentally bouncing off each other, and then of course there was
and then potions. And I went then not from drinking blood and vampires, but then to people eating dead bodies and weird stuff that can be done with dead bodies and consuming life forces.
Yeah, a lot of and I feel like, you know, those were all a lot of fun. And when I say research, I know it's a loose term, but we're not just, you know, we're trying to bring you some weird facts that you might not necessarily know. And this week I really went all out. I got a encyclopedia of Celtic folklore and mythology in order to get as much information. I've listened to everything you can. I've tried to do a thorough job.
I love dipping my toe now and again. I've never gone, you know, very deep into it, even as a bit of a history, archaeology buff. I've never gone full nerd on the Celtic mythology or like Irish mythology, but I love dipping my toe into it occasionally. It kind of almost feels a bit too huge and like it's like preparing to read Lord of the Rings for the first time. Like it is so epic. Complex and epic.
And so muddled by Christianization.
Yeah. One day when I have a rainy weekend, I want to just sit down and actually deeply get into Irish mythology one day, like properly, like go hard.
Well, I've got a PDF for you, a 500-page PDF that I trawled through.
Get through the Encyclopedia of Irish mythology.
Did I tell you about the time I went to the Maryland Celtic Fair a few years in a row?
No.
That was the time two older men, and keep in mind my
friend... Is this like a Renaissance fair thing?
It's like Renfest, but specifically Celtic for like people with Celtic roots or Celtic curiosity about, you know.
Celtic curiosity. That should be a gift shop name or a really weird band. Or maybe an excellent idea for a podcast for some Celtic boffins out there.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a 6-part series on Celtic mythology called Celtic Curiosity. No, we won't. Someone else have that for free. So 2 creepy dudes at the Celtic Fair, and my friend Kate and I were about 16. Keep in mind, in America where I was living, 18 is definitely legal age. They were trying to convince us to buy alcohol, like they were trying to give us alcohol. They're like, hey, you guys want to hang out with us? These guys must have been in their 50s. It's really creepy, very upsetting. Then we watched the men play with swords. I'm remembering this. It changed my life because these guys were in these kilts and they were totally 100% accurate traditional kilts. And let me tell you, 16-year-old me was having a great time.
Whoa.
Because there was a lot of men just sweating in these Celtic costumes and these kilts and stuff, and not wearing any underwear. Oh. And it was just the spectacle for my friend who was very bisexual.
What an introduction. What an introduction. No, that reminds me of my favourite battle reenactment attendee story, which was when I went to a little medieval fair kind of market thing with a little mini battle reenactment, quite close to here actually, just down the road somewhere. I remember these rather overweight, middle-aged, seen better years gentlemen really going for it, fighting on a very hot day, bless them. And when a lot of them died quite quickly, and then their wench wives would come running out with a little can of Diet Cola for them. I was just like, you went so much effort to make everything else look realistic and historically correct.
They could at least bring like a mug.
At least bring a tankard with the cola in.
Yeah, with the cola in.
But I was just there like, nah, it's not accurate enough for me when I was like 8.
My lady wench has brought me a Pepsi.
And that was one of the times that my mum was a man who'd made his own suit of armour and was showing off to my mum about how strong it was and sturdy and well made. And offered my mum the chance to hit him really hard with a sword he'd made well, whilst he was wearing his armour, and my mum did so and created a very large dent in the middle of his chest
Katie
armour.
Sanduina, he is not.
Yeah, and the look of shock and horror on his face and just embarrassment was quite powerful when I was about 8 years old to witness that happen.
Oh, man. So, leprechauns.
Leprechauns, of course. That's what we're talking about.
So, a lot of my information is from various sources, but a lot of it comes from the Encyclopedia of Celtic Mythology and Folklore, written by Patricia Monaghan. Monaghan. Got it.
Maybe. The Monaghan's I know around here are called Monaghan.
Okay. Leprechaun bears the name of divinities known from mythological stories such as Luch, while some scholars dismiss or question...
That was a confident pronunciation.
I don't even know if it is correct, but I'm going with confidence, and that's what you do. All right. While some scholars dismiss or question the connection between folkloric figures and the great gods and goddesses of mythology, most see resonances between what has been recorded from oral folkloric sources and the obvious written evidence found in manuscripts that record early myths. For example, Fionn Mac Camail appears in folklore as less than heroic giant kind of thing, and he would have been a quite prominent figure in ancient times. And we're going to be talking a lot about Christianization, where things get muddled because of the translation from the Gaelic or all their languages versus to English, the basic bad translations and Christianization and stamping out of things. It's so ironic after my research that St. Patrick is this major celebrated creature for a major celebrated religious religious figure. And he essentially stopped people talking about their history, their religions. And that's why it's so confusing to research, because people aren't really convinced that these things like fairies and all, they feel like it's more superstition and folklore, blah, blah, blah. They don't compare it with religion, but there are some staunch believers, including someone I'm going to talk about in a bit, who do believe that leprechauns and other fairy, in the Irish it would be Aishi, or she is just the fairies. And they would staunchly believe that it actually comes from a massive religion with gods and goddesses and everything. But it's been watered down and decimated by, basically invasion and religious invasion and culture and language problems and stuff like that. So there's very muddled information on Celtic mythology and folklore. It's hard to nail down a lot of the time, but we're going to do the best we can as far as leprechauns go. So I hope you guys, I'm going to tell you a story as well. It's not going to just be a history lesson, but Violet's got a really funny story, I think. I hope. Because
you might be disappointed.
No. Okay, so a lot of things water down the elements of Celtic tradition, religion, and belief. It's possibly long forgotten pagan religious history. We're still to this day completely fascinated by these tales. So in a way, they've won, because no matter what, they haven't stamped out.
But it's like it's born from that place where religion and magical kind of stuff cross over.
Yeah.
It's very much of that same segment of stuff.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things where we know that, you know, historically a religion will shift in order to bring people into its flock and base their stuff on the local gods and stuff. So it makes it more palatable and edible in order to condition them.
Absolutely.
So 1911, antiquarian Walter Evanson, The Fairy Faith in Celtic Countries was popularized. So most scholars, though, don't believe fairy belief as a genuine religious belief. It's just seen as superstition. My personal belief is that it was based off of it was a proper religion, much like extreme Greek mythology. I think there's a lot to it. They consider it at best whimsical superstitions, and this is from an interview with Dr. Jenny Butler, who's a doctor in folklore, specifically about Celtic folklore. At worst, it's considered misunderstandings of the world around them and ignorance. So they're basically creating these fairies and things to explain, for example, a changeling. When a fairy switches out a baby and something's wrong with the baby, that could be, oh, it's a fairy's changed out my baby. This baby that I have with this deformity is not mine. It is the fairy switched it out, and, you know, it's not my fault.
Yeah.
That's what they see it as. And many people see these folklore as ignorant and backwards, but saw the same traditions also as quaint or charming. So they consider it backwards, but they're all like, oh, isn't it quaint that they believe in the fairies? So during the Irish literary revival during 1890 and 1922 is where we really see this push for taking another look at these mythical creatures that people keep talking about verbally, despite Christianization and stuff. So people are extremely interested in supernatural mythology. We've talked about this before. This is a time for booming for supernatural, paranormal stuff, much like I believe we're in a tiny bubble now. There was a tiny bubble in about 2005, 2006 for about 4 years, I think. But I think there was a massive bubble in this 30-year time period in the late 1800s. And then there's another one in the 1930s through 70s as far as the Irish Folklorist Committee. They collect information through surveys sent to residents of the area, asking them to tell the stories that they've heard. So they're getting most of their information from verbal folklore that's been passed down generation to generation, so who knows how it's changed. So no contextual information is actually received when they do this. The primary concern is storytelling. So they're not even looking at it from a clear, non-biased base. They just want the information of the stories. So most things are lost, such as religious context, if any. So fae is popularized, the word of fairy, from she, it's popularized in 16th century, and then from 13th century on, you have these ideas of these fairy enchantments, rather than just like fairies being something malicious and scary. All of a sudden they're enchanting.
It becomes like Midsummer's Night's, whatever it is, Shakespeare.
Midsummer Night's Dream,
that's it.
Romanticized, and all of a sudden, not so scary. More like, ooh, wouldn't I ever?
They become pretty.
Yeah, they're beautiful. Suddenly, the females are goddess-like. This is around the time when, specifically mermaids, I can't remember the specific Irish name, I think it's literally like Marrow or something, Marrow. And leprechauns start appearing in the medieval ages. That's when they really start making their appearance. So what the fuck is a leprechaun specifically? We're finally getting into it. I had to give you this fairy rundown because it's very important to see where this comes from.
Leprechaun is a old little dude with a wrinkly face, unusually tanned a lot of the time. Strong orangey reddish hair, big beard, very weird choice of 17th, 18th, 19th century clothes, green top hat, little green suit.
Mm.
A little bit of the shoes. Little people really into their shoe kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like the little gnomes repairing shoes, elves repairing shoes. Leprechauns definitely got a bit of a thing about shoes.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, what is it about tiny magical people and shoes?
Well,
Why do they specialize in shoes?
I've got the answers for you
today.
I've got it. I'm ready. It's in the holster, my friend. So, you're completely wrong. You know nothing about leprechauns, Violet. No.
What a disgrace.
No, you got most of it right as far as the basic idea of leprechaun is basically what it is.
And I also want to know about are there leprechaun women? How does it work?
We are going to get into that.
How many genders? Like, I want to know everything.
I'm glad you asked, because we've got a section just for that. You guys are going to learn so much random shit about leprechauns, you're going to turn into a fucking leprechaun. So get ready. So if this is the Celtic mythology Pokemon game, which we use this all the time, it's the Pokemon game of Celtic mythology. What are the leprechauns'
The original
stats?
150.
Originally 150.
HP, they're pretty low down though. Okay, if they were a Yu-Gi-Oh card or a Pokemon card, these are like, the one that's like, you know. It's one of the ones that are like, why did they make this card? You know?
Oh. Well, really?
Like 50
because let me
HP.
just run down the stats for you on the leprechaun.
Oh,
Super
right.
speed, cunning, luck. And it is the card that you don't know why they made.
It's going to be... Okay, if I was introducing a leprechaun themed card into my Battle Monsters game deck, I would make it a card where it's like flip a coin.
Yes.
And if it's this way, you get to like...
Well, you would be
50
absolutely
damage.
correct, because the thing about leprechauns is you'll see why. They just are the hobbits of the fairy world. So, luck, speed, and cunning are all there, and a leprechaun doesn't actually have a lot of weaknesses, other than its short stature, and we'll tell you why. It's probably one of the most respected of fairy creatures. While the leprechaun appears disheveled, one thing you don't know, the leprechaun is every skanky hippie you've ever met that is wearing every layer of clothing they have.
And a waistcoat as well.
So traditionally, a leprechaun is actually supposed to be wearing red because solitary fairies, there's two types, the solitary and the socials. Traditionally, they would normally be wearing red or any kind of color other than green. Only the fairies that tend to socialize wear green. And remember, one of the first episodes you mentioned your family's history of talking about the green color of the fairy clothes.
Yeah, green being the color of the little people.
Yeah, so most little people
have it in the house.
Exactly. So the only little folk that doesn't really wear green are the solitary ones, and this includes leprechauns. So one interesting thing to note is that it's traditionally the other types of she or fairies that wear green. So the leprechaun is basically the Jack Sparrow of the fairy world. Cool, respected,
he's the little bad boy. He's the Bart
Yeah.
Simpson of the fairies.
But they are extremely good at crafts, stonemasonry, shoemaking, etc. They're really good at crafts. So what can they do? Well, a leprechaun doesn't have to fucking worry about getting the bus or the train, because you know what they can do? They can ride a fucking rainbow to their stashes of gold. They magically ride on
I never knew that was the reason for the rainbows onto the pot of gold.
You seen Lucky Charms when he's riding the rainbow? That's based off of actual fact.
That's real folklore cereal, everyone. So all these middle-class people putting their nose up at Lucky Charm import. Yeah. You could be teaching your children about Celtic mythology.
Yeah. So they get to their many gold stashes. So, of course, a rainbow in Celtic tradition... A rainbow in Celtic tradition is a cosmological symbol and very important. The bright bridge of colors that decks the sky after a rainstorm has drawn many legends to itself in Celtic lands as in other cultures. In Celtic areas of Germany in particular, the rainbow is believed to leave traces of gold wherever it goes, wherever it touches the earth, and the belief gave rise to production of a special coin, and we're going to do a future episode about weird currency, so this might get featured. Mm-hmm. With a slightly concave surface called the rainbow coin in English. I could not pronounce the German. And the coin is thought to give magical healing powers. And in Ireland, of course, the rainbow is important to the leprechaun because they use them to magically travel and also to hide their gold. So they're difficult to spot at the best times, but if you want to go looking for a leprechaun, the best thing to do right away is not believe in them, because they tend to fuck with people. You actually can see fairies better if you don't believe in them, because they'll pop out of nowhere just to fuck with you. And the fact that you're skeptical.
Mischief makers. You'll attract mischief makers, for sure.
Exactly. Especially if you're contrarian. We know you're out there. At dusk and dawn is the time you can most clearly see them. And we can only visualize them sometimes. That's the thing. They move very quickly, so fast that when you look at them, it appears as if they're moving slow motion, right? Because they're going actually at such a high rate, or possibly in a different universe or dimension, that they don't travel the way we do.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so the sightings are rare. They're extremely solitary.
Oh my God, imagine being a leprechaun and just space warping through time and the planet and alternate dimensions. I mean,
exactly.
we could be so embarrassingly basic.
Exactly.
We are so embarrassingly basic.
That's why they fuck with us.
Imagine
and that's
being a tiny little crazy little redhead, immortal mini mischief dude.
Yeah.
Flying around on rainbows. I mean, this is it's cute and magical and epic and...
So if you're seeing them, it's possible that your brain cannot comprehend the image properly because they're moving at such a strange pace for your brain. It's something we can't imagine, apparently. So the sightings are rare. While most fairies love to live in their palaces with their extravagant, never-ending parties and luring people into them to make them go deaf while they dance around them and stuff, the leprechaun can be described as solitary and miserly.
Oh, great. So we've got people having a free party in the woods, and then the grumpy...
Leprechaun's off on his own with the other...
Grumpy leprechaun.
Solitary creatures like the banshee and shit.
It's kind of sad.
There's also a particular weird one that I couldn't pronounce the name. We'll go into it later. According to the Encyclopedia of Celtic Folklore, leprechauns are actually part of the solitary fairy subgroup within the Sidhe. Not to say that they avoid other Sidhe or fairy. In fact, as skilled craftsmen, they are very truly the engineers of fairy society. That's right, folks. Fairies have jobs. So anyone out there having the fantasy that it's going to be all cake and music and you're hanging out with the fairy king...
you have to get a job. You're going to have to pay fairy rent.
You're going to be working in a fairy
council tax
call center, working under a banshee, trying to finish a load of reports before the solstice eve dance.
Yeah. And you might get paid overtime, though, if you do work the solstice.
Yeah, and children.
Yeah.
So, of course...
Teeth and children.
Oh. Of course, all leprechauns are male. There are no one has ever seen a female leprechaun, and I'll tell you why.
Is this like dwarves in Lord of the Rings, though, where there are lady ones, but no one's ever seen one?
Not from what I can tell. They're very much masculine creatures. So here's the thing.
Or masculine appearing.
Yeah, masculine appearing. Because they are, of course, natural tricksters.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't be able to truly tell because, by all accounts, it is rare to spot a leprechaun. And people who do, and even on the off chance that you manage to grab one, they disappear so quickly that you probably won't be able to describe them. You know, it's such a rare sighting. It may be that their females act certain differently or whatever, but as far as we know, there are no female leprechauns. Sorry, ladies. However...
I mean, if we imagined leprechauns as a creature from another dimension...
Yeah.
Imagine that just full of little leprechauns.
Yeah. Well, here's the... Okay, so there's some cool stuff, because I have theories why there are only male leprechauns. Because there's also the merfolk in Irish Celtic folklore, which, interestingly enough, were introduced around the same time as the leprechaun, as maybe like the extra 250 Pokemon. Their males are so ugly that the women lure men to fuck them because they can't stand the sight of the men. So they'll lure these men.
Did the men get it the other way round with a fish with a man's legs?
No.
Oh.
They're just extremely...
That would have explained it, though, maybe.
They're extremely ugly. But yeah, maybe. It only described the women, of course. They're breasted, human top, lady bottom. But they can apparently, in some tales, they can detach a tail. Don't want to get too far into mermaids, but it's interesting to note that there are these weird gender plays. There's these weird spectrums in the fairy world where it accounts for... It specifically mentions gender with a lot of these. So it is not by accident or by chance there are only male leprechauns.
Okay.
It is on purpose, I believe.
Or whether an alternate dimension where there is no gender.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, possibly, or every possibility. But basically, all of the golden-haired, trestled, goddess-like creatures that are associated with fairies, including banshees, mermaids, other creatures in Celtic mythology, all have or are female. Generally, most of the fae are female. There's subgroups of men, subgroups of the male type.
Fairies are famously female.
Exactly. So we can't begrudge the leprechaun representing for our males if they want to see themselves in a leprechaun. So leprechauns often live alone. And I just thought it was very unique in that sense that leprechauns specifically are all male and traditionally very this homogenous type creature. They busy themselves with craft or industry. They like to lounge about. Any friends that remind you of a leprechaun in our life?
I know lots.
They don't do much at all except sew gold into their coats and hats and shine their silver buckles perfectly at home by themselves, creating shoes for their fairy friends. Basically, all the fae of the palaces and stuff, because they're dancing so frequently, need new shoes, so they are...
And they must need a hell of a lot of shoes, because the elves are making shoes, and all the little goblin shoemakers, the brownies doing shoes, Bogart did a shoe,
and we wonder why all these shoes come up.
Shoes.
Well, I'll tell you. So, they're especially known for their skills at shoemaking. They keep the dancing troupe shod. And the name Leprechaun comes from Leith Brogan, the maker of the brogan or shoe, and he was the fairy shoemaker, sometimes tailor.
What is the brogan a shoe? Was it a legendary shoe?
Brogan is a shoe. Brogan's the Celtic name for a shoe.
Oh.
So, Leprechaun, Leith Brogan, shoemaker. So he's the fairy shoemaker. He's like the brownie almost, except he doesn't work for anyone but himself and does things generously for the other fairies. Whereas a brownie will work around your house shivering, like, oh, it's so cold.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I'll do the dishes. Oh.
Yeah,
and then you give it a coat and it fucks off forever. It's like, I'm free. Good Dobby. All right, so...
I hate Dobby.
So speaking of shoemaking, in Irish folklore, it's interesting to note that shoemakers have a greater stature in society than the average craftsman, possibly because of the famous fairy figure of the shoemaker, the leprechauns. Shoemakers appear as clever men who can cause trouble with their cleverness, as in the tale of the man who learned shoemaking from the fairies, aka a leprechaun, but he made shoes for the parish priest, Christian, who was unable to say mass whenever he wore the shoes.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's good, isn't it? You have to be a bit of a clever clogs to make a shoe, no pun. And it is quite a thing, because to find a shoe that fits and is comfortable and sturdy and doesn't rub your feet... You treat those people like gods. God, I love it. When I find a brand or something that just I know that size is going to fit perfectly, and then I just buy all of my shoes from there. It's quite a skill being a shoemaker. Especially back then. And so they're very revered. And that's why the leprechaun... You want to be friends with the shoemaker. Yeah. And he's surprisingly this well-respected mythological creature for what reason? It's so weird. We're like, so that's the magic of old paganism and old magic. It's still here today, despite being essentially tried to be wiped out. You know, typically in the solitary fairy category, as we discussed earlier, leprechauns are often pretty mild. However, the last thing you want to do is offend one. And often being polite and courteous with the leprechaun is far more likely to end if you're getting away safely, like if you're being nice. Oh, I hope I don't meet a leprechaun, because I can be pretty offensive without really trying very hard. Well, after all, these natural-born tricksters should not be dealt with lightly, or, as we were saying, if it all had a possum. You don't want to deal with them. I mean, my image of leprechauns is actually I'm quite scared of them. I think they're to be feared. Yeah. But that might be because I watched the movies with Sarah Michelle Gellar. But even before then, they have this malicious undertone. That, they got the trickster element. You mean Jennifer Aniston? The leprechaun, Warwick Davis, Jennifer Aniston. Maybe, but I feel like there was another, maybe a spin-off one, or like Leprechaun in the Hood. There was one with, I'm sure it was Buffy. There's she probably was. Yeah. They had 3 really good ones. Leprechaun in the Hood is amazing. Leprechaun in the Hood 2 is pretty good. Oh, can we watch that at some point? We're going to watch. I haven't seen Leprechaun in the Hood for years. Yeah, that's the good one. I tried watching the first one. I was like, it's alright. Where's Leprechaun in the Hood? those leprechauns were really scary.
Well,
like, just
they
seeing
are.
clips
They
of
are.
that when I was a kid used to freak me out with Warwick Davis running down that whole corridor.
Remember the bit where he's like in a tunnel?
Yeah.
That traumatized. I ran out of the room when I saw him crawl out of that weird dirt tunnel.
That was a freaky prosthetics. Really grotesque.
Good. Very well done on Warwick Davis's part. All right, so if you're polite and do not offend, your luck may just increase. That's the That's the best thing you can hope for, is you're nice to the leprechaun if you see
Just be charming.
Just be nice. Don't be greedy. Don't be like, I want your gold or whatever. And
humble and charming.
Yes.
Be a psychopath.
And just be like, goodbye. And the leprechaun will maybe increase your luck, you know? However, if your gold greed or wealth is just too powerful to ignore, you have a few options should you want to get a hold of the leprechaun's gold. Would you like to hear? Gold. Give me the gold. Would you like to hear how to shake down a leprechaun?
Yes.
Okay, so finding the leprechaun, if you're so lucky, is only the first step to getting his treasure. You then have to extract the information from him and be sure he's telling you the truth. The only way to do this is to trap and hold the little man, keeping him in sight.
Oh, God.
By all accounts I read, you have to physically assault the leprechaun in order to...
I'm worried that listeners are going to go out there and find people who aren't that tall.
But that's what
happens. And shake them down.
No, it is a shame, but that's what happens.
I need you guys to be 100% sure that you are...
Poor Warwick Davis. I saw him and Carl Pilkington do a documentary, and people in India were trying to rub his head for luck. I was like, what the fuck?
Oh, right.
Poor dude. Yeah, they still, to this day, there's so many... little people have a lot to deal with.
Yeah.
Little people, big fucking problems.
Yeah.
All right, so one method, and I quote, leprechauns can be captured by grabbing the little fellows by their teeny shoulders. They employ all kinds... I knew I was going to get you with that.
I get awkward just like if someone wants me to pick their toddler or baby up.
Yeah.
I'm like I can't imagine just being like confident enough to like just like get a leprechaun by the shoulders from behind.
Oh my god. Oh gosh. So you have to grab them by their little shoulders and hold on tight so they don't escape. And you have to look it in the eyes and never break eye contact because they employ all sorts of trickery. So this is, okay, so you're the leprechaun and I've got you grabbed. God. Wait, I'm the leprechaun and you've got me grabbed, okay? And this is how the leprechaun will escape. Oh, there's a boggart over there. You see the boggart? It's coming right behind you. And then you look, and then the leprechaun's gone. So they basically would point to a monster, or
they would do the look over there.
Yeah. The classic.
Yeah.
What's over there?
Yeah.
Now I have your Kit Kat. Like, so the only thing, so you can get their treasure, but usually it doesn't end well, and they'll find a way to trick you, even if you make a promise with them. And then even if you get gold, traditionally in fairy fashion, you'll come home with cow dung in your pockets or something useless. So don't fuck with the leprechauns. It's not a good idea. They can be very fucking malicious.
I feel like anything that even if they appear to give you a gift, it's actually a magical item that might dissolve later, or that they can whisk away whenever they want.
And you'd be surprised how accurate the movie The Leprechaun with Warwick Davis is, because if you steal a leprechaun's gold, they do turn very malicious. They will hurt and maim you.
They will murder you.
They will murder you. They will. They'll go after you. So that Leprechaun movie is I watched it the first half an hour or so recently when I was in this whole research thing, just to see like what it was again. And yeah, it's actually pretty accurate to what would happen if you stole. It starts off with a guy who's stolen this leprechaun's gold, shoved him in a suitcase because you can't kill them. He's hidden him in a suitcase. And yeah, the leprechaun gets super pissed and he starts killing everyone.
Before anyone goes out leprechaun hunting, you need to watch that movie and learn up on how to defend yourself from leprechauns. So
old standing stones or particularly special looking trees, leave them alone, or the fairy folk will hurt you.
Oh, shit.
Like the mermaid, leprechaun was introduced or appeared around...
Only the violent fairies.
Yeah. Well, they won't mess around.
Yeah.
So
you don't want to mess with the wrong fairies.
That was our Leprechaun History 101. Now we're on to a mini story that I've been dying to tell you.
Okay.
Nicole.
I'm slightly more frightened of fairies and leprechauns than I was when we started.
I'm terrified. This week I've been just like hearing like a kid play recorder.
You're gonna be like throwing that green screen out of the window for fear of invoking the wrath of the little people.
Crichton Community, March 14th, 2006.
Yes!
Mobile, Alabama, right before I graduated high school. A little video on evening WPMI TV is shown, and then the next morning it's replayed with some extra footage, goes viral. It's the Mobile, Alabama Leprechaun.
Yes.
Crowds gathering in the Crichton community were in a frenzy, everyone shouting about seeing the leprechaun. Whispers had gone through the entire neighborhood from several streets. Crowds were surrounding a strange tree, and everyone was pointing, saying, don't you see it? Don't you see it live? Famous footage of this can be seen on YouTube. I'm going to play you the famous viral video at the start, so you can have a clue of what we're going here.
Patrick's Day, crowds are coming by the dozens to get an up.
This went viral in 2006.
It's a piece of Irish folklore.
Some people in the Crichton area of Mobile say a leprechaun is taking up residence in their neighborhood. A leprechaun. DC 15's Ryan Johnson.
So skeptical.
Curiosity leads to large crowds in Mobile's Crichton community. Many of you bring binoculars, camcorders, even camera phones to take pictures. To me, it look like a leprechaun to me. I gotta do look up in a tree.
Just in leprechaun style, yeah! His face is so good.
It comes out at night. If you shine a light in its direction, it suddenly disappears. This
amateur sketch.
You say the leprechaun looks like. Others find it hard to believe and have come up with their own theories and explanations for the image.
My theory is it's casting a shadow from the other limb.
Like, that's like our theories parts of episodes.
Oh, my favourite.
Don't be afraid.
This guy helping to direct traffic says he's prepared for his encounter with the leprechaun. He's suited up from head to toe.
This wars off spells right here. This is a special leprechaun flute.
It's a piece of piping.
My great-great-grandfather who's Irish. I just came to help out.
Others just came to get lucky in hopes a pot of gold may be buried under this tree.
I'm gonna run a backhoe and uproot that tree. I want to
No way to go with that.
I want the gold. Give me the gold. I want the gold.
This is Brian Johnson, NBC 15 News.
People will do anything.
Alright, so obviously that went viral, and then that spun off the tune.
Absolutely love it. I think it's the most amazing news story ever. I would kill to be my local news.
Yes.
I would love to be on
and the
TV
amateur sketch.
being like, I've seen the leprechaun.
That amateur sketch sold for like $3,000 recently,
Wow.
like in an auction. All right, so 2006, March 14th, around St. Patrick's Day. So Brian Johnson, the reporter, is around these crowds cheering and chanting, and a manhunt is underway. People are searching for this leprechaun. Community members are interviewed. Locals report over and over they have seen a leprechaun in the tree. They would shine the light, as it said in the video, and then it would disappear, so they wouldn't be able to see it. The following day, more footage is captured, and I've got a previously never before seen by me and you video. Let's see if I can find it again. Yeah, the following day, more footage is captured. The famed Leprechaun Hunter, whose name is DeMarco Morissette, the Don't Be Afraid man, is interviewed further. He explains that he has a special flute passed down from thousands of years, as we heard, from his great-great-grandfather who was Irish. Locals gather around, hoping to find the gold possibly buried beneath that tree. So when they come back in the next day, they're looking for footage. What I never knew is that evening, after the report's gone viral and everything else, people are still gathered outside seeing the leprechaun. They are looking at the leprechaun. There are people recording that day going, do you see it? You can see its hat there. One girl claims that it almost tipped its hat, but she didn't understand because it was moving very slowly. and then it would appear to move slow, and then appear to move fast. You see what I'm saying? Creepy.
Ooh.
There's a famous Key and Peele skit that parodies it.
Oh, I love that.
There's South Park parodies it. It's Jimmy Kimmel's favorite viral video. Mine too, Jimmy. So DeMarco Morissette sits down in 2011. The Irish descendant Leprechaun Hunter, self-proclaimed Leprechaun Hunter.
Dude, yeah.
I am the star of that video. He reveals the flute. I was just assing around and having fun. Didn't know it was going to blow up for real, he says. Some guys were hanging out and drinking, and he claims an old lady came to them and told them about the leprechaun. They went to see themselves and saw the actual leprechaun, and word started to spread. So even he claims that even though he was joking around with the flute thing, that he did see the leprechaun.
Right. Whoa.
In 2014, the most compelling evidence comes out. Evidence as far as what really happened comes out.
An explanation.
Yes. A man claims responsibility for the sighting, calling it a hoax. 2014, the Bob and Dan show in Dallas, Texas, were determined to find out what was going on. So they sent a couple people down from Texas to Alabama and
to actually investigate.
Yes.
Wow.
So two guys drive down to Mobile, use the original source material. They found the tree's location. So they're looking at the footage and trying to find out where it was. They talked to locals. And of course, because this is a hood, this is a neighborhood. So people are watching and people start to approach them to see what the fuck they're doing in the neighborhood. So they're getting out to take pictures. They're approached by a woman who asks what they're doing, why they're there. They explain they're looking for clues in regards to the Mobile, Alabama leprechaun. The woman informed them that, the leprechaun was a big hoax, orchestrated by a local community member, also known locally as Midget Sean. Obviously, a little person who's known locally with this nickname.
Right.
Ah, Midget Sean, that's a friend of ours, she said, dressed as a leprechaun and climbed into the tree. They confirmed he lived on a nearby street.
Did they go and interview
they accidentally
him?
meet their cousin, who says they'll arrange for a interview in a parking lot somewhere, and they go to meet Sean.
Wow.
He can be seen hanging out on porches, streets nearby. They drive around looking for him, stopping at a gas station, and that's when they meet this cousin guy. Then they get to meet Sean himself. Is Sean lying? AL.com report rediscovering the Crichton Leprechaun. A man named Sean, a different Sean, claims to have also seen the leprechaun. So I'm going to leave you hanging there for a second.
Okay.
He's an artist. He looked at the tree and saw the image. The next morning, the leprechaun was gone. And the evening after, he said he slowly materialized on the tree again. They were watching in real time as pixel by pixel, element by element, this leprechaun materialized. Basically, Sean said that, I climbed up the tree in leprechaun gear for St. Patrick's Day and then, jumped out of the tree and ran. That's what he said happened.
We don't actually know, right? The next morning he was gone. The next evening he came out.
Who's the artist?
We're waiting around to see if he would come back. Right before our eyes, he just did another morpheus on the tree. The nose came in first, the mustache, the mouth, and it just transformed right on the tree. Well, initially when I saw the image, that's what I thought of. I thought of a leprechaun. It just looked like a leprechaun to me. A lot of folks believed in it now. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people trying to take pictures, and they were saying every time they put the camera, put the phone in the tree, they disappear, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. I ain't care nothing about it. I was like, oh, God, what's wrong with it?
So that artist claims to basically that it materialized, and then anytime someone was trying to take pictures, because everyone had their camera phones out, that it
wasn't like saving.
It was like a reflection.
Yeah.
So if you want to check out more about some stuff, there's wheretogoldat.com. It has all your Mobile, Alabama merchandise and everything and the whole story. But what you initially get here is a story about people seeing a leprechaun and it disappearing. And that's used as this clickbaity sort of, 2006 fun St. Patrick's Day news story. But when you dig down deeper, the actual truth is that it was there every night for 3 days.
Yeah.
By all records. And people were actively able to see it, or at least claiming they saw it, while camera crews were around. So, theories hoax conducted by Sean. Mass psychogenic illness, previously known as hysteria, mass hysteria. This is one that we've come across before as a sort of cure-all for explaining anomalous things throughout history when it comes to social vulnerability, I suppose, and social herd behavior.
Like if a hype is created, like
Yes.
maybe one thing happens on one day that inspires it to kind of continue and a buzz to happen and a hype, even if it's not there anymore.
You can hear in the "Don't be afraid, man." He's literally getting his 15 minutes. He doesn't realize he's just having fun. The flute he was carrying, my dad, when the video came out originally, my dad identified it as a piece of plumbing pipe.
Okay.
That's what my dad said it was.
Yeah, I mean,
he's a handyman, so
it does kind of look like that, doesn't it?
And it's just a brilliant video, but other UFOs, aliens, that's right. Many people may believe that leprechauns could be alien visitors, explaining the strange injuries people receive when in contact with Fae or She.
I mean, we were getting into
missing time.
Yeah, we were touching onto this in our demons episode, and anything where we've looked at like a creature or a being or something, it's like they could all be an alien or a
non-corporeal species that we don't
creature
understand.
from another dimension or spirit.
It could be an advanced bacteria that thinks, for all we know, and that fucks with your brain the way some funguses do with the zombie ants. That makes you hallucinate. You know, it could be anything. It could be an airborne creature.
Yeah.
You know, it could be like, who knows? But like, those are the theories. If you haven't checked out the Mobile Alabama story, make sure you give yourself a good chuckle.
You have to.
I'm making my own remix of Where to Gold.
When I first knew you, you had that ringtone on your mobile phone.
3 years.
I want to know where the gold at.
I was obsessed.
It really is true.
And keep in mind, that was on my phone since 2006. I had taken the weird MP3 thing, because it was really hard to do custom ringtones back then. And I had taken the time to make a custom ringtone out of that gold song. And imagine me being in the bank, setting up a bank account for the first time, when I just want to know where to go. I want to go. I want to go. And I'm like, oh shit, no. Oh shit, not in the bank. Anywhere but the bank.
I had a polyphonic ringtone on my first mobile phone when I was about 12. Smooth Criminal.
Oh my god.
Beep, 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 beep. Beep, 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 beep. Over and over and over, driving everyone insane.
But yeah, that's my story of the Crichton. How do you feel? Do you think it could be real? I feel like it could be real. I feel like it follows all of the leprechaun lore.
It could be. It could really be. But if I was to be skeptical and say that leprechauns don't exist, then it sounds well, not even that. Like, it just, maybe someone did do a little hoax and it just caused a big hype, you know?
Yeah. And because they were getting attention, maybe people were playing along like DeMarco, Mr. Morissette. Maybe he was just like, let's have fun with this. Nothing ever happens here in the Crichton community.
Let's get everyone dancing around under the tree. Get the TV here. It's a great time.
I would have liked to seen, like, I gotta check that website, but I would like to see that kind of, I hope that some of that merchandise money and stuff goes to the Crichton community. If it doesn't, I wish it would. I feel like, you know, they could really make a little leprechaun-y tourist spot if they take advantage of it. They could really learn
from my story that I'm going to tell you soon.
Perfect.
They could really learn that might be a great way forward for Crichton.
Well, we'll be right back with your story.
I'm just going to tell you quickly, though, about the time that I stayed in a weird B&B in Wales for my university graduation. No. Me and my mum shared a twin room, okay, and this was like proper, like, creepy, weird farmhouse, like more weird than the farmhouse I lived in Wales. Yeah, more weird than my haunted farmhouse. It was like the father and daughter duo running it in the middle of nowhere in this really weird village. It was like you felt like you'd gone back in time to like an even more like poverty-ridden rural Wales situation. It was like very, very odd and smelt really bad, and there was like a big slaughterhouse. It was freaking creepy. And all of the rooms, we'd like check in, and we're sharing this twin room, and all of the rooms in the B&B are like named or like themed. So it'd be like the hyacinth room, or the lavender room, or the bluebell room. what were we staying in? The Leprechaun Room
No.
was the room I had somehow booked. Twin room, twin bed, Leprechaun Room. Everything was themed leprechaun in that room. Green shamrock stuff everywhere,
Oh, no.
little leprechaun statues, leprechaun tapestry on the wall, leprechaun paintings, leprechaun toys, figurines, a cushion with like a crocheted
How do you go from
leprechaun on
lavender
it.
to leprechaun?
And everything was covered in a thick layer of black dog fur because the B&B owners let these massive dogs just run around and sleep in the guest rooms. It was weird. That's the closest I've ever got to being really freaked out by leprechauns.
Oh, that's gross.
I didn't sleep well that night.
No, you wouldn't. Not with like a bunch of middle-aged leprechauns watching you while you're sleeping.
Well, I had to go and graduate from university the next day in a ceremony. Having had a sleepless night.
Yeah, it was lucky,
Sharing
though.
a room with my mum in a freaky leprechaun-themed room.
You'll never get me, Gold.
Okay, so my story. We are in Carlingford. It's a little village on the Cooley Peninsula in Ireland, right by the sea, very rural, very hilly, quite isolated, quiet, there's not too many people about. I don't know what this says about me, or my preferences, or maybe this is just turning out to be a very typical, like, British Isles occurrence. But my story starts in the 1980s with a publican, or like a pub landlord,
Oh, yeah.
called P.J. O'Hare. He was an older man. He owned a pub in the village of Carlingford. He's quite a businessman, though, by all accounts. He had his fingers in a lot of different pies,
Okay.
I think. Selling land, selling houses, just
Not
different
stupid.
businesses in the area, but his pub was his kind of home turf. And he'd lived his life in this area, it's beautiful coastline, expanses of green fields, very kind of mystical island kind of nature vibe going on. There's woodlands, there are this majestic mountain range straight out of Lord of the Rings that kind of tapers down into the sea. And overlooking the village of Carlingford is this great big mountain called, I think it's Foy Mountain, or they also call it Carlingford Mountain. I can't pronounce the Irish names, but in Irish, the mountain's name means Mountain of the Woods.
Okay.
But locally it's known as the Mountain of the Giant because it resembles a giant man sleeping on his side.
Okay.
Local folklore says that a giant called Finn, a hunter-warrior character from Irish mythology,
We spoke about
which
him earlier.
exactly we've already touched upon in the Encyclopedia of mythology. He apparently stood on this very mountain and fought his nemesis and ultimately threw a rock at his rival, defeating him and kind of creating another mountain on the range.
Nice one.
The army of the legendary Queen Maeve are said to have dug or tunneled a pass through the mountain.
Oh,
So it's a
wow.
very magical place.
Yeah.
It's a very significant mountain in the local mythology.
Yeah.
Mr. O'Hare, he's a local man, he's probably lived his whole life around Carlingford. He's very familiar with the mountain, he knows the land around him well, and the mountain literally overlooks, this village, and he lived really, really close to the slopes of it.
Yeah.
One day in 1989, Mr. O'Hare was out on Carlingford Mountain on his own, making preparations to sell some land up there to an American who was interested in buying it, it's like grazing land and such.
Oh, okay.
So he's up there on his own, and then he hears a short burst of piercing screaming.
Oh.
And it sounds like someone is in incredible pain.
Oh, wow.
And he figures, that someone's gone walking up on the mountain and has injured themselves or broken a leg. So he quickly...
Freddie Crystal.
Exactly. So he quickly heads in the direction of the screaming to investigate. He arrives where he thought the screaming sounded like it was coming from, expecting to find a walker, with a broken leg. But he actually comes upon a truly surreal sight.
Uh-oh.
Instead, he finds a large patch of hot, scorched, burnt ground. And he finds on this scorched ground a very small, charred skeleton that resembles a human skeleton, but tiny.
Oh, wow.
He also finds a small green conical hat and a small green tailored suit. The suit is really small. You could probably dress like a teddy bear in it, I think.
Wow.
And he's looking at it, and he puts two and two together. So he's seeing burnt ground, tiny, smoking, charred mini human skeleton, and a little green pointy hat and suit next to it. And he realizes he's found the burnt skeletal remains of a leprechaun.
Shit, I wonder who that leprechaun pissed off.
So oddly, the leprechaun's clothes that he finds seem to have mostly survived this spontaneous combustion or meteor strike or whatever. They don't seem to be too burnt. And as Mr. O'Hare examines them, he finds various little tools and bits and bobs, like a mini pickaxe and all these little things, as well as 4 unusual gold coins in the pockets of the tiny green suit.
Oh, wow.
So, essentially, this pub landlord, he found the remains of a dead leprechaun on the mountainside and decided to pick them up and take them home and keep them.
Why not?
The clothes and the bones and the tiny pickaxe and stuff go on display in a glass cabinet in his pub. But he doesn't display the gold coins, I guess because he doesn't want anyone to steal them.
Yeah.
Would you like to see some photos of the leprechaun skeleton and clothes?
Oh my god.
Okay, that in the background there, that is the suit. The little pointy hat, green jacket, and green breeches.
Okay.
That was found on the mountainside.
We know from mythology, we know from our history lesson earlier, they had many coats and many buttons, and there'd be gold trim. So I'm already a little bit suspect.
These are very simplistic, minimal hipster leprechaun.
Yes.
If this
are
is
these
off
his
a real
tiny
leprechaun.
tools?
Yep.
Is that a tiny loot?
Yeah, a tiny loot. A
tiny alcohol bottle?
A glass bottle of wine or whiskey. A little pickaxe. A little axe. A little anvil, an accordion, what looks like a shield, a little bone or something.
I mean, they've done the, for the most part, I'd say they've done the proportions correct, but that instrument, the lute, would be too small for that creature to play.
Yeah.
Unless they borrowed it from a smaller fairy.
Are you convinced that these clothes are from a real leprechaun?
I would...
Or is this...
If you're going to convince me that it's part of the she or the fairy, I would say it's more likely to be normal fairy folk than a leprechaun. Based on the evidence seen here, it's normal fairy, not a leprechaun. If you're going to say it's a fairy at all.
That's very telling.
I'm not convinced at all. Based on my research?
Maybe it's just more... Maybe it's deeper than that. Maybe it's like an Inception kind of thing, where it's like, this is actually like a trick that the leprechauns left out to keep themselves hidden. How the most clever leprechaun would be like, okay, I'm gonna leave this clearly hoax looking leprechaun skeleton and stuff out.
Yeah, it could be, okay. I'm assuming that's gonna be on the Instagram there.
Yeah. Anything that I bring up, I'm generally pretty good at listening through and making sure
I was just plugging it. I know you're meticulous. I'm just letting the listener know.
So, back into the story. Mr. O'Hare tells a friend of his, a Mr. Coilty, about the find. But Mr. Coilty doesn't believe him. He's a very sceptical man, and he thought leprechauns are purely a fictional character from the fairy tales. He does see the clothes and the bones, though. Oh, that's another point. also had a little mini skeleton
Just
on display.
what's up with people and dead bodies in general?
Yeah. These pictures will be there for you to see on Instagram.
No wonder the fairy folk aren't coming out, because humans are so fucking crazy. They're drinking mummy milkshakes and proudly displaying their dead family members.
Mini leprechaun skeletons. Burnt mini leprechauns.
Have you seen this leprechaun?
Charred ones. Like, that's grim, man. That's quite grisly. Grisly imagery. So he sees the clothes and the bones and the coins that Mr. O'Hare had found on the mountain. And so he decides that they should hold a national leprechaun hunt on the mountain to see if any leprechauns could actually be found. But also, and this is my idea of what happened, he saw an opportunity to create a bit of buzz and tourism.
Yeah.
So what he did...
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
What he did to get people involved and get lots of people enthusiastic about the leprechaun hunt and put Carlingford on the map
Oh, God.
was he went up on the mountain and he actually hid 5 ceramic leprechaun statues, like the kind you get in a garden, like a gnome, and he hid about £1,000 worth of money under each statue.
Oh, wow.
So there was like £5,000 to be won.
Oh, wow.
But in order to participate in the leprechaun hunt and qualify to like win, you had to buy a leprechaun hunting license for £10.
Oh my God. Sweet Mother Mary. I fucking found me gold.
So loads of people got really excited.
I'd pay £10.
It sounds so good, doesn't it?
It's a good day out. You're like, I'm going leprechaun hunting. It's £10.
Exercise.
I get to be officially a leprechaun hunter as a little license. You know how we love gimmicks and like
and
little...
You could sell leprechaun t-shirts, leprechaun key rings.
Oh my God, this man's a genius.
So, yeah, loads of people got really excited and thousands of people descended upon Carlingford and came from all over to participate and go exploring on this magical leprechaun mountain with a chance of winning real cash prizes.
Yeah, real gold.
And, I don't know. It just sounds like fun.
It's a good day out. I'd pay £10 to have a go at trying to find 1,000.
So the Leprechaun Hunters, they found all of the ceramic leprechauns and won the money, but unfortunately no one encountered any real leprechauns.
Oh.
Mr. Coilty remained obviously quite sceptical about the existence of leprechauns, but he was stoked that the leprechaun hunt had been a big success and created a buzz in this little Irish village. A few years later, the pub landlord, Mr. O'Hare, who's found a dead leprechaun on the mountainside, he passes away.
Aww.
The 4 unusual gold coins that he had kept had gone missing by this time. His family didn't know where they were. They must have looked through his possessions.
Yeah.
But no one knew what had happened to them. Maybe someone had taken them or stolen them.
Or maybe he hid them like a crazy man.
Yeah.
Or the leprechaun took it back.
One day, Mr. Coilty, the sceptical friend who founded the leprechaun hunt, he was repairing an old stone wall, and he lifts out an old stone, and underneath it was hidden a small leather purse with 4 unusual gold coins in it.
Oh.
So he believes that these are the same magical leprechaun coins that his old friend O'Hare, the pub landlord, had found on the dead leprechaun, and so he keeps a hold of them. One morning, Coilty, he decides to go up dog walking onto the mountain to the general area where it was thought that Mr. O'Hare had originally found the dead leprechaun.
Okay.
God, this feels such a weird phrase to say.
Like
Dead
the leprechaun corpse.
The remains of the leprechaun. When he arrives at the spot, he is unprepared for what he is about to
Oh
encounter.
no. On Coincidence Mountain?
On Coincidence Mountain, he sees 3 leprechauns sitting on a rock,
Oh, wow.
wearing clothes just like the little suit that Mr. O'Hare had recovered from the dead
Wow.
leprechaun.
Only less charred.
As soon as it dawned upon him that he was looking at real-life leprechauns, he realised he and his dog couldn't move, and he couldn't speak, and he couldn't communicate with the leprechauns in any way. I think they sort of just ignored him. They were just like
Okay.
sitting around, like shaking their legs on a rock. And for about a minute, like 1 minute, he was completely paralysed. He just was watching them sitting on this rock until they moved and they went behind a big rock and disappeared. And he was then able to move again and control his body.
Wow.
He was obviously quite freaked out, so he quickly returns home from the dog walk to find his wife quite pissed and pissed off.
Oh no, how
Pissed
long
off
was
with
he
him
there?
and concerned. Oh yes, you're right, Cassie. She asked, what he'd been doing, and he was quite, surprised by this confrontation. He said, I took the dog out for a walk up the mountain. And his wife said, well, you left with the dog at 11 o'clock this morning, and it's now 8 o'clock in the evening.
Wow.
So Coilty realised that the dog walk, which should have taken an hour or 2 at most, he'd come home to find that over 7 or 8 hours had passed, and it was now late in the evening. So that 1 minute that he was paralysed,
Wow.
observing the leprechauns, he felt that could have actually been hours, or maybe he'd travelled in time or lost his memory.
Yeah.
His wife didn't believe his story
Like,
about the
what-
leprechauns. I mean, guys, what would
What's
you do?
the leprechaun's name?
Maybe.
What's her name?
What would you do if your husband came back with that story after being gone all day with no communication?
I'd ask the dog.
But it sort of seems like the sort of thing your husband might do. I can kind of imagine.
This is the thing. If Morgan
he
came
might-
home and said he'd been up the mountain and
I
seen a
almost
leprechaun,
wouldn't
I would
question
believe-
it. I would believe it.
Morgan is 100%. My husband is 100%.
If he said he
A
saw
truth
a
teller.
leprechaun,
You'd have to
we
believe him.
would have to believe him. Yeah.
Yeah. I would actually just accept it and be like, okay, sweetie, are you okay? Do you need to talk about it? Because you've been gone quite a long time. Like, what happened? I'd probably ask what happened.
Where did the leprechaun touch you?
In me gold purse.
Oh no. So now, Coilty, he needs to make sense of what's happened to him, of course. He needs to confirm what he saw.
That makes sense in dollars.
So this is the moment where it's like the little movie where you're like,
Okay.
I have to realise I
He's
am the chosen
researching.
one.
Yeah.
The next day, he returns to the mountain again, and this time he encounters one leprechaun.
Okay.
And this experience was different because he could now communicate with the leprechaun. He wasn't paralysed
it
with
now.
leprechaun magic.
Yeah.
The leprechaun told him that his name was Carrig and that he was an elder leprechaun and he was one of the last leprechauns who lived in Ireland.
Oh, wow.
There had been millions of leprechauns, but they had died out because people stopped believing in them. And there were now only 236 leprechauns left alive.
Powered by the human
Belief.
consciousness.
I mean, this is some Tinkerbell shit here right now.
American Gods as well, Neil Gaiman.
They needed someone from humankind to protect them. Otherwise, the leprechauns would die out altogether.
Oh no, he's not the leprechaun lord.
He's the chosen one.
Fuck this guy.
The time was now, the
On
leprechaun said.
Coincidence Mountain.
On Coincidence Mountain. The time was now right to make their existence known.
Okay.
They're coming out of the closet. The magical leprechaun closet. So, Coilty became an ambassador for the leprechauns, basically. Carrig the leprechaun told
I'm
Coilty,
just jealous. I'm really jealous that he gets to be known as the ambassador to
the
leprechauns.
chosen one. I don't know. I would rather be the chosen one of the elves or something.
Yeah,
a little
yeah.
bit more I
Something
need
cooler.
wine glasses and flowy dresses. I really couldn't pull off the leprechaun look. Like, beard, hat.
Buttons everywhere.
Well, I don't like wearing breeches. I need the ethereal flowy dresses and like smocks and stuff.
You're not into black stockings that are made of wool?
No thanks.
Okay.
And like repairing shoes all day with an anvil. No thank you. So yes, Cerrig the Leprechaun tells Coilty the stories and history of the leprechauns. And Mr. Coilty actually publishes Cerrig's story in a 2010 book, The Last Leprechauns of Ireland.
Okay.
So guys, freaking read that. I didn't, but I would love to be sent a copy.
Yes.
You remember, Cassie, that I said that Mr. Coilty found those 4 golden coins in the wall?
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, he has since been told, I assume by the leprechauns themselves, that these are magical gifts and that he must pass the coins on, I think, 3 hours before he dies.
Okay.
Or they'll be like magicked away to the leprechauns again. And that there is also another rule, which is that he can't just pass the coins on to anybody, but they have to be given to someone with 7 sons. Now, not only does it happen that Coilty himself has 7 sons, but he also has at least 7 grandsons. So maybe he'll be passing those magical golden coins down in the family.
I won't be getting no coins.
In 2009, Coilty and other locals of Carlingford got an area of habitat on the mountain protected by the EU under a Habitats Directive to protect the leprechauns.
That's real?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
100%.
Oh my god.
So basically to stop people destroying, disrespecting the leprechauns' habitat, leaving them to it, giving them their privacy. So yes, in 2010, the mountain
They're
was...
isolated peoples.
Yeah. Listen to our Uncontacted Peoples episode. In 2010, the mountain was formally declared a designated area of protection for flora, fauna, wild animals, and little people under the Habitats Directive.
That's pretty sick.
Also, in 2009...
Just wait till the American little peoples from the convention start turning up in Ireland, like making tree houses, like, sup, bitch.
He also... Oh, we could get Sean over.
Yeah, Sean's gonna
I'd love
move
to see
in.
that. In 2009, he also starts the Leprechaun Hunts again.
Okay.
This time, 100 ceramic leprechauns with prizes and at least one with €2,000 attached. The Carlingford National Leprechaun Hunt happens every year now on the day that the clocks move forward for British summertime.
Okay.
This year, they did a hunt for a pot of gold, and the top pot of gold contained a voucher that I think could be cashed in for an actual bar of gold or the cash equivalent. Coilty says he does it to get more people to believe in leprechauns, as it is only belief that will keep them alive. So it really is a charitable endeavour.
That's cute.
Coilty says he speaks to the leprechauns regularly. In fact, he has built an underground cave in Carlingford called the Leprechaun Cavern. Apparently, it connects with 2 mysterious magical old tunnels underneath the village. One links with the Fairy Glen in Rostrevor, County Down, and the other with Foy Mountain and the home of Ireland's last remaining leprechauns. Coilty lives locally, and he now still performs a service as a leprechaun whisperer.
Okay.
So I assume you can knock on the leprechaun whisperer's front door, and he'll take you into the cave and kind of translate between you and the leprechauns.
Okay.
You can this is a real 100% real thing. You guys should definitely go there. I'm not committing to anything, but I wouldn't turn down a trip to Ireland. The story of the leprechauns of Carlingford has inspired people to write songs about them. It's created tourism for the area. It's inspired to broaden the magical spectrum of Carlingford to fairies as well. The village now hosts a fairy house building competition, and they've also got a legend about a local fairy queen who had some kind of interaction with leprechauns.
Okay.
So it's super magical. Millions of years ago, the leprechauns first encountered fairies in the land of the Norse at a place called Arundel. On their return journey to Ireland, they met others below Normandy who gifted the leprechauns with a flower petal which was to keep them safe if they kept it in their pockets. Queen Sive lives below a fairy tree growing on Mountain Park, Carlingford, close to the area where the leprechauns are protected. It was Queen Sive of the fairies who first explained to the leprechauns why they were dying and advised them to seek protection.
Aww.
So she gave them some advice. So it's a lovely, magical, multi-species thing going on in Carlingford. Leprechauns and fairies looking out for each other. Mr. Cruelty, the ambassador, chosen one, custodian, working on their behalf. And whether you believe it or not, getting everyone out to enjoy nature, healthy exercise, respecting and protecting a natural habitat on the mountain, keeping local folklore alive, and doing a good job of keeping the leprechauns alive too, maybe.
Yeah, I like that.
What do you think's going on in Carlingford? What do you think about...
He really does it. He's so smart. He's like, now if you don't believe in the leprechauns, you're killing them.
You're not environmentally friendly.
Yeah. I like it. I believe in leprechauns totally, though. I totally do. I believe in little folk in general. I really do think they're either some kind of dimensional species that we don't understand, maybe an alien, or whatever it is. I believe in it. I just think that my little brain can't process it most of the time. But yeah, I like that.
I like it. I think it's very cute. And
I don't hate it. I feel like it's good.
Leprechauns are fun.
He's not scamming.
Yeah, and they're a fun little quirky little thing to keep alive, and they're a cute character. If anything,
of the little folk, they're really, really one of the most respected and most interesting ones.
I'm just loving the ways that like pub landlords and people like to create a bit of hype, and it's like, okay, you know, what can we do to get more people in the pub?
Haunted chair.
Yeah, okay, we've got a ghost, haunted, cursed chair, you know, put some like weird museum in there. Okay, great, the landlord actually found a dead leprechaun up on the mountain, and here's his little green hat and suit, which was found next
pickaxe.
to him.
I mean, that must have taken months working on little bits to, like, if you were going to hoax that.
It's the most wonderful thing about British pubs is any good old pub has some weird curiosity.
Yes.
A little museum of, like, weird stuff. Heritage of pubs is very fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's our Leprechaun episode. Do you have any gold? Are you hoarding gold right now and want to... do you need me to shake you violently until you tell me your secrets?
Would you like to send me some of your magical leprechaun gold?
Yes.
To study for research purposes.
For research, yes.
Maybe you found golden coins hidden in a wall or in a secret cavity in your home, under the floorboards. Have you found a tiny green suit?
Have you found a tiny little shoe that you claim is very worn? That creepy Irish dude that literally thinks he's got a leprechaun shoe.
All our hiking listeners out there, have you ever come across charred skeletal remains of a tiny leprechaun? Have you ever seen a fairy or a little creature? Tell us your experiences. I haven't seen a leprechaun.
I've never seen a leprechaun.
I don't know that I want to.
Saving my fairy story.
But I love seeing a rainbow.
Yeah.
I love a good rainbow. Always makes the day brighter.
Yeah. But yeah, make sure you send your weird stories to worldwearypodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Add us on hashtag worldweary on Twitter if you want to check us out.
WorldWearyPod on Twitter.
Yeah.
Instagram, WorldWearyPodcast. Go on there. We put bonus pictures on there. We put little updates on there. You can see loads of pictures and photos that we reference in our episodes. And also check our diary page on our website for lots of further reading, and I'll be adding links to videos. There are loads of cool little documentaries you guys should definitely watch about the Carlingford Leprechaun, and we'll also put the mobile Alabama Leprechaun stuff on there so you can have a good look through all that. It's absolutely fascinating stuff.
And hopefully I can do my own little I Want to Gold remix and add that to the end of this episode.
I'm very much looking forward to it because it's absolutely endearing.
Should we do our tarot?
Yeah.
Am I missing anything? Are we good? I didn't forget anything this episode.
I think that's the normal.
Oh, there's kind of card trying to get away. If we get like a little dude in green, are you going to freak out? Because there is a dude that looks like a leprechaun on the cards. And it just is, and it's a pot of gold one. The cauldron's full of gold.
Ooh, weird.
Let's see. Here, you should pick the 3 this time.
I don't know. It's not my deck, though.
Oh, true.
I'll let you be in charge of this segment.
All right. I'll let you. That's the truth of it, people. All right. Ooh, very interesting.
Ooh, this is a weird looking lot. Some quite powerful ones
Very
there.
weird. All right, so we're starting in the near past is the King of Wands. So natural born leader, vision, entrepreneur, honor. It reminds you to lead your life with intent, vision, long-term view. You have a grand idea of what is truly possible, and you will stop at nothing to see it through. Unlike the knight, who can be a little impulsive, the king's got his shit together to be able to see that vision and focus.
He's the man with the plan who knows how to see that plan out.
And the appearance of him in a reading, sometimes, especially here, he's in the recent past here, it's like it's a determining factor whether we should just go for something. It's an opportunity presenting itself sometimes. So that's interesting for the recent past.
Makes sense.
So what do we have for our present is the Wheel of Fortune. Interesting. So good luck, karma, destiny, a turning point. So that's very good with the King of Rods. Like an opportunity has presented itself, and presently we have this opportunity to remind ourselves that the wheel is always turning, like Robert Jordan.
Yeah.
Whose Aes Sedai is actually Celtic, like Aes Sedith and all that shit.
We were talking about the connections in his work.
So the cycle shows why it's so important to cherish the blissful moments and make the most of them, because in a flash they could be gone. It also is known as karma, and what goes around comes around. Be kind and loving to others, and they'll be kind and loving to you. Be nasty and you'll get that
Try and
back.
put good things out into the universe, which is something I'm really working on at the moment.
Yeah. It asks you to be optimistic, have faith that the universe is going to take care of you. We just have to let the wheel turn as it will. See how she's like trapped within the wheel? She's not like freaking out. It's just the way it is. It's almost like a womb.
Yeah.
You know, it's the comfort of...
It's like a little...
It's out of your hands.
It's a washing machine and you're not getting out of it till it's done.
You also may feel compelled to work with, higher energies. If you like control and stability, then it may come as a shock to the system what's going on right now.
Oh, God. I mean, we've had lemons and...
Chaos
throwing all around, spinning out of control.
Also, it might be a critical turning point in your life, you know? Especially with your move and, like, everything that's going to happen. Like, maybe we'll be in a more positive energy space to continue for. But that is a very interesting card.
What was this? The Magician reversed.
Yes, the Magician reversed.
And that's our near future.
Yeah, the near future. So, manipulation, poor planning, untapped talents. Oh no, Violet. What's going to happen in the future?
Untapped talent.
On one level, the reversed magician
Quite
shows
flattering.
you are exploring what you wish to manifest. So we're doing, like, in regards to the podcast, we're doing it, but you may be uncertain if you have everything you need. You know, if you have everything that it takes. But if you take care of what you intend to manifest, again, the universe will take care of you. So that goes back into the Wheel of Fortune there. So stay attuned to your intuition. It's like follow, because upright, it's like a very spiritual man. The magician has this otherworldly view on the world. He's got this connection to higher energies that guides him, and he can be wise but foolish at the same time. It's very easy for him to turn back into this fool type archetype. So if you're already acting on your goal, which is us, the reversed magician can be a sign that you're struggling to see progress or success. So we're in this, comfortable place, but it might not be that we're not like sponsored. Where's my Casper fucking mattress sponsorship? So maybe you have lost touch with why. Maybe it wasn't compelling enough and now you're lacking motivation. So we got to keep our motivation up.
Keep that passion burning bright. Keep it spicy.
Or perhaps the end goal is out of alignment. And with your highest good, the universe is sending a big stop, go back sign. So this is a weird one that's imploding in on itself. The King of Rods is saying, you go for it. Wheel of Fortune says, now's the time, things are happening. And the magician's like, wait a second. Hold up, what are you doing this for? You may feel,
It's almost like it is focusing you in to ground yourself. Remind
you gotta
it's
be
like
on
a
your higher
cautionary
self.
thing of just make sure that you do this in a refined, cautious
and from the right
way.
place. Don't be greedy, don't be manipulative, don't be tricksy. In a career reading, specifically, it shows you may have skills, talents, capabilities, but your real potential is not being maximized. You may realize you have so much more to give, but you're great at something, but you haven't allowed yourself to nurture this. What needs to change to reach our real potential? That's what it's saying. It's like in the future we're going to have to reckon with perhaps not feeling like we're fulfilling our full potential. But, I feel really good about what we've done so far. So I do feel like we come from this higher place of trying to do it for the right reasons to make ourselves feel better. And if that helps other people, that's cool.
At the moment, it's just keeping our heads out of the water.
Yeah.
We're just going to keep on trucking.
Yeah, it's fun. I always want it to be fun. It'll be so much more worth it when the universe takes care of us. And we find a leprechaun. And we have our first exclusive interview with a leprechaun that's ever been done in the world. That'll be us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I feel like someone's already beaten us to that somewhere.
Yeah, the ambassador.
Yeah, exactly.
But thank you for listening to our podcast. Hopefully at the end of this, I'll have a remix for you guys.
Until next time.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.